time to ease on into the storytelling chair. Hello, everybody. This is your good pal Malcolm Tent speaking directly to you via the wonders of Facebook here on the internet, the ethernet, the ether wave, whatever this thing is. I don't know what it is, but it's technology and I don't like it, but I'm going to use it for my own nefarious ends, and hopefully you people are as well. And yes, I'm looking at my computer screen right now and I see that according to it, I am indeed live and I am happening. So I'm going to reach over here and get this thing going so I can see exactly what's happening, so I can see how I look, how I sound, whether I make any sense at all. I mean, that is certainly a debatable issue and one that I'm not going to try to settle. But yeah, I'm here. We'll get into storytelling mode in a second. I wish to, first of all, wish a happy Mother's Day out there to all you mothers who are out there. Thanks for being a real mother. Would also like to take a moment to reflect upon the passing of Bill Cates. Bill Cates, a key cornerstone member of the ANTiSEEN family and a invaluable player in the story. He was the bass player for the Mach 1 ANTiSEEN. It's him on the Drastic EP. He left the planet a couple of nights ago, and nobody's very happy about that. I only met the guy a couple of times, maybe a few times. Every time we'd play Charlotte, it seemed like Bill was there. And heck of a nice guy. I really liked him. Seemed like a really cool, humble dude, and I always looked forward to seeing him at our shows. So, take a minute, salute to Bill, and thanks for your service, man. Seriously. So, yeah, let's get on with the matter at hand here. First, I'm going to look for comments to see if everybody can hear me okay. Can you hear me? Can you see me all right? Does it, am I doing good out there? Am I clear? Am I moving well? Maybe. Maybe not. Yeah, okay. Looks like it. There's always this delay between what I'm actually transmitting and what shows up on the monitor, so I have to wait a few seconds to see what the reactions are. In fact, I'm going to reach over here for a second. We always have to always do this little bit of technical tomfoolery before we actually go full-blown live. And okay, people say I sound good, people say I look good. There are people watching at work. I like that. I like that. Oh no, wait, we see somebody says my circuits are malfunctioning. Other people say I look good. Some people say the picture is jumpy. What's the verdict, man? Do I look good? Is it worth continuing, or should I try to stop and reboot? I'm not sure technologically what we're dealing with here. Okay, the consensus is that we look good, we sound good, so we're going to roll, baby. We're rolling. So here we are, gang. History lesson part 4. In the ongoing series of the sick, twisted, decadent, majestic, ridiculous, completely insane, totally sane and grounded. Oh, turn off the side light. Oh man, I'm getting some real, okay, the light goes off. I'm getting a lot of good feedback from you guys here. We're gonna make this a good webcast. It's gonna look good, it's gonna sound good. Okay. Oh, I see what you're talking about. I'm really reflective over on that side, aren't I? This is awesome. This is what interactive video is all about. So I'm going to tell this story right now. 4th in the series. Yeah, let me get rid of that light. Oh boy. There you see there are drawbacks and there are pluses to the internet and live broadcasting. So here we go. Number 4 in the series of my involvement with ANTiSEEN. As the story has been moving forward, we started off with my first session, which began in 1984, And now we've reached all the way up till 1993. And we've already covered the release of the WXCI 7-inch. We've covered the release of Eat More Possum. And we've covered the releases of the various ANTiSEEN side projects, such as Mad Brother Ward, Jeff Leopard, Judas Bullethead. Yes, all that's happening. And now we're in mid-1993, and alternative rock and grunge are still completely, utterly cranking. Ooh, that sidelight is bad. Hold on a minute. There, I just removed all natural sunlight from the broadcast. So we're here in 1993, and it's still the era of alt-rock, grunge rock, and the music business, the music industry is moving full steam ahead. My record store is cranking, my record label is cranking. We're able to do a lot of things now at this juncture in history that weren't possible before and wouldn't really be possible after this golden era of the early to mid-90s. So, because things are so friendly, so user-friendly for music, for musicians, and for music and labels, all this stuff is happening with ANTiSEEN. All these projects I just talked about in a second ago. And I'll invite you to go back and look at my prior broadcasts. They're all archived on the ANTiSEEN page and on my Facebook page. They're all there, so you can go back and look at them. As are Jeff Clayton's broadcasts, the Break On Through broadcast, and as is Mad Brother Ward's broadcast from last week, which is really entertaining. So all this stuff is there if you want to get all the backstory. So at this point now, it's June of 1993. And I'm at the front counter of Trash American Style. As usual, just twiddling my thumbs, kind of staring at the telephone in grave apprehension, just wondering what the next phone call is going to bring. And of course, that's when the phone rings. I pick it up. I say, "Trash." The voice on the other end says, "This is Jeff Clayton." I say, "Jeff, what are we releasing today?" He says, "Well, let me tell you. GG was just here visiting a few days ago. And me and the boys had this little informal session with him. And we recorded a couple of tracks. Nothing fancy, nothing, it wasn't meant for release, but it came out really good. So we thought maybe he'd like to do a one-time pressing of it of 500 copies and just get it out there." I, of course, said, "Yeah, it's 1993. We'll do whatever we want, man. I mean, we always do whatever we want, but now we can afford to do whatever we want. We're going to do whatever we want. We want to release a quick, informal, happy, fun GG Allin session. We'll do it." Clayton says, "Right on." And just out of curiosity, who's on this session anyway? What's it all about? He said, "Well, GG was at the house, and we had this bunch of people." Hopefully you guys can see this. Hopefully this makes sense. We had myself, unimpeachable president for life, Jeff Clayton, doing backing vocals and playing the scrub board. We had my younger brother, Greg Clayton, playing the drums. And we had Jeff Barbecue Young playing guitar. And I'm going to take a second to mention, we already know Jeff Clayton, obviously, lead singer of ANTiSEEN. Greg Clayton, who at this time was the drummer for ANTiSEEN, and prior to that was in Mad Brother Ward and the Screamin' Street Trash, and was the leader of Rawhead. Jeff Young, I think, deserves special mention, because he's on the GG Allin record that we're talking about here. Jeff Young played a really critical, pivotal role in the creation of ANTiSEEN. And Jeff Clayton talked about this. He told this very story on his first broadcast. I'm going to basically tell the story he did, but from the perspective that Jeff Young told it to me. the last time we hung out a few years ago. And this is a great story. This is like so typical of the Young brothers and how things happen. Jeff, the way the barbecue told me the story, one day in like the autumn of 1983, he was hanging out at home, probably watching Andy Griffith, and Joe Young came home and said, "Man, I got a problem. I'm in trouble." And Barbecue said, "What's up?" And Joe Young said, "Man, Jeff Clayton just asked me to play guitar in his band, and I said I would do it, but I don't know how to play guitar. What am I going to do?" And Barbecue said, "I have the answer to your problem. I can solve your problem right now." And Joe Young said, "How?" And Barbecue said, "Man, some friends of mine took me out to a concert the other night. We went to go see this band called the Ramones. And I'm telling you right now, the way they play guitar and the way they write songs, you can do that. You can do it the way they do it." And Joe was like, "What do you mean?" So Jeff got out his guitar, showed him the very rudiments of how to play Ramones style rock and roll. Joe picked those rudiments up, went to rehearsal, maybe that very day, I don't know, and that was it. You had ANTiSEEN. Boom, boom, bam-a-lam, just like that. So that's Barbecue Young. Joe Young's little brother. Wee little itty-bitty slip of a fella. Barbecue. Good man. Totally wound up in the story of ANTiSEEN from the very beginning. So he's on the record. They cut the session. Jeff's going to send me a tape. And we're going to do just a for fun pressing of a record of this session. And I think I mentioned to Jeff casually that GG was playing in New York City this coming weekend. And, me and some friends are going to go down and see him. And if I see GG, I'll tell him he said hello. Great. Pregnant pause in the story. I got to get some water here because things are about to get even more intense. You wondered how intense they could get? You just wait. Good things are worth waiting for. Okay. So that was on a Monday in June of 1983. We're going to now fast forward to the following Sunday, June 27th, 1993. It's an auspicious occasion. GG Allin is going to play an all-ages Sunday matinee in New York City. That's auspicious for a number of reasons. GG Allin playing an all-ages show? That's pretty weird. Sunday matinee? That's pretty weird. New York City? That's also kind of weird because at least one of his attempts to play there had gotten canceled at the very last minute. So, if this thing actually happens, it's going to be pretty cool. So, we got a whole carload of people to go down and see this show, which is at a venue called the Gas Station, way down in the bowels of Alphabet City, the Lower East Side of New York City. It was on Avenue B and 2nd Street. And Alphabet City wasn't quite the war zone that it used to be in the 80s, going up into maybe even the very early 90s. It wasn't open warfare anymore between the cops and the squatters and the anti-gentrification forces and the gentrifiers and the developers. And it really was, there literally was open fighting in the streets for a long time. Plus the typical heavy-duty drug dealing and gangs. And Alphabet City was definitely not a place you went to unless you had very specific business. And if you had specific business there, you were probably up to no good. Or you were a punk rocker or something. So by 93, Alphabet City had definitely simmered down a little bit, but it was still pretty funky down there. It was still funky enough to where you could have a venue like the Gas Station, which literally was an old gas station. It was like this concrete cinder block structure with a bare concrete floor and a concrete courtyard with a great big fence around it. And, they'd taken the pumps out, but the garage bay doors were still there, and the old office was still there. And to this day, I'm not sure if the gas station was actually a venue per se. I think it might have been more of an art gallery. I'm not aware of any other concerts that ever took place at the gas station except for the GG one. If anybody has any insight into that, any New York City people might want to chime in and leave a comment on that. But this was definitely a show, and it was happening at the gas station. And the carload of people that went down there was certainly a motley crew. It was myself. It was my friend Garth. It was the 14-year-old GG Allin superfan, Jason the Wood. Garth's 12-year-old brother and a couple of his 12-ish-year-old friends. Think about this for a second. It's me, my main man Garth, and a bunch of 12-year-olds, essentially, going to see GG Allin at a gas station in the Lower East Side of New York City. I mean, seemed like a good idea at the time, we got all the parental permissions were granted. I actually went to Jason Wood's house and spoke to his father, Walter, and he said, is it going to be okay? I said, well, the GG Allin show's typically pretty wild. And he said, oh, I know. Jason's talked all about him. And he's, yeah, I know. And I was like, it can be pretty nuts, but I'll do my best. And Walter said, well, if you take care of him and make sure he's okay, it'll be fine. I said, okay, great. La, 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 la. We're going to go see GG Allin. Yay. And so we did. And we drove down to New York City. It was a beautiful, beautiful summer's day, man. Summer in New York City is really something. Wall-to-wall blue sky. It was nice and warm and sunny out. And we're going into the bowels of what used to be hell in the Lower East Side of New York City. All of us drive down there, me and Garth and the kids. And we get to 2nd Street. Just in time to see GG going across the street to enter the venue for sound check. I seem to recall he was dressed up in his helmet and his skirt and his boots, and he was just strutting across 2nd Street. I'm like, all right, the essence of rock and roll is very much here and present in New York City on June 27th, 1993. Wow. The start time on the flyer was posted as 3 o'clock p.m. Now, generally speaking, shows in New York City are pretty tightly run and have been for quite a while. But back in this day, 3 o'clock meant whenever. But I'm the type of guy to show up when I'm supposed to show up. The flyer said 3, we were there at 3. The Murder Junkies didn't start sound checking until 3:30 at least. And we could stand outside on the sidewalk and hear it outside. So they sound checked. It took about 10 minutes and then commenced the wait for the show to actually begin. And we waited and we waited. People kept coming. Ended up being a real good crowd of people. There's probably, all told, like maybe 150, 200 people there. And so everybody's hanging out on the sidewalks of New York City. Pretty mellow scene. I'd say the crowd was about half die-hard GG fans and half tourists and slummers and wannabes and, curious locals or whatever. Everybody's hanging out. It's cool. The afternoon wears on. Finally, the first band goes on. A band called Human Sewage, who I remember nothing about. They sort of came and went. Whatever. More time passes, and the second band comes on, and they're called Black Rain. Now, Black Rain were something else entirely. Black Rain were somehow associated with Missing Foundation, who were a real heavy-duty industrial group on the Lower East Side. And Missing Foundation were known for being really hardcore anti-gentrification and hardcore anti-developers, and they were out there literally in the streets, agitating and fighting and doing guerrilla performances and, banging on sheets of metal and, doing their best to keep the yuppies at bay down there. They're pretty serious. And so even at this late stage of the game, to have their associates in this abandoned gas station in the Lower East Side was pretty cool. So they go on and they do their set, and they're awesome. They are louder than hell. They sound like the Swans, but instead of being all depressed, really pissed off. And, when you've got a relatively small concrete block structure with a ton of people wedged in it, the energy level gets high real fast. It becomes like a pressure cooker real quick. And so these guys were really working it, stomping up and down on sheets of metal and banging on things, and bass guitar cranked up really loud. At some point they set off like a full-sized military smoke bomb. So the place is so filled with smoke you really couldn't see. And then in the middle of all that, they set off what I swore had to have been a half stick of dynamite. It wasn't an M80, it wasn't a quarter stick. This was beyond drive-through fireworks. This thing had a punch. You felt it. So between that and the metal and the smoke, they really, really agitated everybody, and that was great. And I, of course, was rolling tape, as I always do. Anybody who knows me knows I record everything, always. I'm kind of sick in the head that way. But I later established contact with the band, and I asked if I could release their performance as a cassette, and they said, yes, you certainly may. And they sent me some artwork, and that ended up being TPOS number 95, Black Rain, live at the gas station, opening up for GG Allin's last ever performance. And as a sort of PS, I asked them what that thing was they threw into the crowd, and they said it was a military concussion grenade. So now I can truthfully say I know what a military concussion grenade feels like at close range. It ain't pretty. This, by the way, is still available from TPOS. That's me. If you want one, y'all just let me know, okay? Okay. So anyway, that's Black Rain. Another long delay. And the next band up is The Denied. The Denied have an interesting pedigree because their lead singer, Mike Denied, would later end up being in the Murder Junkies. He was their singer for a spell. He appeared on at least one of their records. Not exactly sure what his history is with them, but he toured with them, recorded with them. His band, The Denied, opened for the Murder Junkies on this fateful day. I missed most of their set because, like I said before, it was a beautiful, beautiful day. I didn't feel like being cooped up in a smoke-filled, recently grenaded, abandoned gas station on the Lower East Side. I basically hung out in the door, enjoying the weather and hanging out with all the people who were there. Like Mark Rentzer was there. My friend Paul Benoit, who I called Paul Ramon, was there. Some other people here recognized by sight were there. So we're just hanging out, listening to The Denied, and having a real good time on a Sunday afternoon in New York City. So Denied finished their set, and now it's a real long wait. Real long wait for the Murder Junkies to go on. Prior to this, Merle and Bill Weber had been outside in the courtyard just hanging out. I remember Weber nursing a big 40-ounce, maybe even more than one. Merle just hanging out. Dino, I don't know where Dino was. Gigi was hanging out at somebody's apartment. We later found out this guy, Johnny Puke. So Gigi was cooped up in this dude's apartment a couple blocks away, and people were going back and forth between the apartment and the venue, and everybody's like, man, you guys better watch out. Gigi's been on coke all day, he's been drinking all day, and he's pissed off. He's in a foul mood, man. Y'all better watch out. So that, of course, sends ripples of apprehension through the crowd, because nobody, seeing Gigi is one thing, but having him in a bad mood is something else entirely. Okay, whatever. Just from my own experience, with GG live, I noticed that he liked to psych himself up before a show. I don't know if he liked to psych himself up before a show, but he would psych himself up before a show. He liked to get off somewhere and be by himself and basically work himself into a rage, and then hit the stage. So I'm guessing he was doing something like that over at Johnny Puke's apartment, and for whatever reason he had a lot of time to do it, because it was a long delay between the Denied and the Murder Junkies. So anyway, however much time finally passes, and here comes GG. He's got two people. He's got one on each shoulder, sort of propping him up, walking him across 2nd Street. And he's kind of stumbling around, and they get into the venue, and the show's about to begin. The crowd, as I mentioned a second ago, was like half diehard GG fans and half whatevers, tourists, wannabes, people who are out for slumming, people from uptown who were like, oh, we've heard about this GG Allin. Let's go enjoy his brand of performance art, shall we? And we can get some escargot afterwards. There were definitely some of those there. I'm going to call a quick timeout, because as I look at my computer screen, I see that my image is completely frozen. So I'm going to double check on the phone here and make sure I'm still going on live. Looks like I am. Okay. I blame it on the hardware over there. So that's the kind of crowd that GG is facing after he's been up in this guy's place drinking and doing coke all day. You know, half fans, half nobodies, essentially. So the show begins. I don't have to go into it blow by blow, because the show's on video. It's out there. You can find it easily enough. But I'm just, like, the things I remember specifically about it were that GG seemed to go particularly after the touristy types. I remember a lot of people with cameras who, like, went right up front when he started playing, and he went for them first. He totally went to take them out first. I remember one guy got punched through his camera specifically, busted his head open. Another guy had his nose flattened and he was bleeding. Saw him outside after the show, stuffing tissue paper up his nose to stanch the blood flow. And the first thing I thought was, wow, man, GG's not doing any self-mutilation. He's going after the crowd on this one. He's not fucking himself up. He's aimed right at these people. And the position I was in the room was like, okay, if this is the room and the stage is right in front, I was over to the left. House left, stage right. And so you had this sort of phalanx of real hardcore GG people right in front, along with all the tourists, who, by the way, got cleared out really quickly. The hardcore GG people right in front, and I kind of put myself behind them. I figured if anything was going to come my way, they'd take it first, and I would have a chance to split or duck or whatever. So I spent most of the show kind of like peering over somebody's shoulder. So my perception is not complete in any way, shape, or form. You know, I was looking at the show like this and like this. You know, I was going like that, ducking and dodging, bobbing and weaving. So the show goes on. The critical point came after the second song, when either the mic went out or the sound man cut the power. I'm not exactly sure what happened, because the soundboard was off to the side behind this rolling steel door, and the steel door was completely shut. You know, like it was shut. The board was behind. Excuse me for 1 second. I'm going to refresh my monitor here so I can make sure that I really am still live here, because this thing's been frozen for several minutes. I don't have Rebecca Clayton here to run interference for me. I'm sorry. I don't have her technical expertise to see me through these rough patches. I got to do this by myself. All right, I'm still on. I don't trust this technology at all, man. It's bullshit. But I'm here. What can I tell you? Anyway, soundboard's behind this rolling steel door. The door is shut. The sound is cut. Gigi's like, where's the sound, man? Where's the sound? And somebody says, it's over there. So Gigi goes and starts kicking the door. And I didn't see what happened next. All I know is I heard this crash against the door, and the crowd parted, and there's this guy laying on the floor. Out cold. His pants are down. He's out. And I thought that Gigi had killed the guy. I really thought that Gigi had like rammed his head against the door or the wall or something and killed him, because he was just laying there. And I said, okay, time for me to get out. So I calmly walked out the door. I remember walking out that door in the contrast between the scene of mayhem on the inside with all the fear and the panic and people bleeding and Gigi like really nailing people, with that beautiful New York sunny day. And by this time, almost everybody had already left. So when I walked out, what I saw was like this huge crowd of people on the other side of the fence, outside of the courtyard, on the street, like in the fence, just kind of looking in. And I walked over across the courtyard to where they were, and we're saying like, what the fuck, man, what's going on? And at some point they dragged the guy out. And when I say they, I should mention that Gigi had these, I don't know if they were provided by the club or they must have been provided by the venue, but they're these couple of skinhead bouncers who were running interference for Gigi. It seemed like their mandate was to let Gigi do whatever he wanted, but don't let anybody fuck shit up. Gigi was the only one allowed to fuck shit up. So he could go out and freely do whatever he wanted. And so they dragged this guy out who had been on the floor, and they were kicking him and punching him, and the dude's like flat on his back on the courtyard, still out cold. He's got, I will never forget the sight of his one eye open and rolled up at this weird angle in his head, and it looked like a glazed donut. Like, imagine somebody's eyeball with a glazed donut coating on it. That's what this guy was like. And I was like, Jesus Christ. I've only ever seen a corpse once, and it was not this close up. This is really unpleasant. And so, in the meantime, we hear all this crashing and smashing and yelling from the inside. And I remembered at that critical moment that I left my recording gear inside the venue. I had a bag full of microphones and a cassette deck, and I wasn't going to sacrifice my recording gear. So, all right, let's go back into the venue and get my stuff out before something happens to it. So I walk back in, and, by now, he's covered in blood. I don't know what was happening, but he was gushing blood. He was screaming face to face with this guy who was wearing like a painter's coverall and nothing underneath. And this guy was just like, in Gigi's face, and Gigi was screaming at him, and people were like freaking out. My recording gear is where I left it, exactly in this corner of the room, so I casually grab it and walk back out, and everything's fine. I'm still in the courtyard. Everybody else is on the other side of the fence. People are milling around outside the venue, and there's still more yelling and screaming and crashing, and finally Gigi comes out. And, as you can see in the video, the courtyard was filled with these big metal sculptures, like all these rusty big pieces of metal that were like welded together, like all these pikes and poles and heavy things mounted in concrete buckets and stuff. Lots of weapons, a perfect source of weaponry for open warfare. Nice. So Gigi comes out in this, and I just saw that and I was like, okay, I'm out of here now. So I hopped the fence, and now I'm on the other side with everybody else. And, such a great study in group psychology. You know, when you think about the fact that GG Allin was just one guy, you know, one guy, one dude, naked, covered in blood, has already beaten himself half to death, and you've got 150, 200 people, like, in complete terror, you know? The crowd psychology, it's amazing how it works. And so everybody's just, like, kind of milling around, and all of a sudden, here comes GG around the corner. He's on the street now. He's coming around 2nd Street, rounds the corner up Avenue B, and now it's in the streets. And you can see it on the video. You know, he does his thing in the street, and people are, you know, milling about, and the bus comes up, and people throw bottles at the bus. I've always wondered, like, this great what if. You know, what if GG Allin had commandeered that bus? Think about that. He'd gotten the bus and got all of his followers to come on in to that bus, and then had a big joyride around the streets of New York City, and then drove all the way downtown and crashed it into Wall Street. Or, like, drove it off the edge of a pier somewhere and sank into the river. I mean, tell me that wouldn't have been the most amazing last show ever. You know? God. Kind of makes you wistful just thinking about it. But no, the bus didn't get commandeered. Nothing happened. They just threw bottles at it, and the bus driver called for help and whatever. So, kind of the same deal. You watch the video, and you can see how the scene played out. Meanwhile, I'm on the street. I'm wondering, okay, where the hell is the 14-year-old I'm supposed to be looking after? And where's my friend Garth and his 12-year-old brother? You know, where are all the kids? You know, we got to get the troops together before we can go gallivanting down Avenue B in pursuit of GG Allin to see what kind of mischief he's up to. We did regroup the troops and sort of, like, piecemeal get back together, and I remember that Garth and his brother really wanted to find GG and see what he was doing, so they took off. They start running down Avenue B to find GG and see what was going on. Me and my friend Paul Ramon kind of stayed back a little bit because GG had already gone, like, blocks and blocks and blocks down. There's no way we were going to catch up with him because Paul wanted to have a smoke, so, you know, he sat down and had a smoke, and we ambled on down Avenue B to see what was going on, and you could tell GG and his crew had been there because there were, like, police barricades knocked over, garbage cans knocked over, broken glass in the street, all kinds of degenerates just kind of wandering around, sirens, you know, the occasional cop car zooming by. It was clear that something was happening, but we didn't know what, because they were like way down at this point. So we walked down a few blocks, and eventually Garth and his brother came back, and we all sort of regrouped and said, well, gee, wasn't that a show? And decided to go back to the car and go home. So what else are you going to do, right? And it was really funny because walking back toward the venue, Bill Weber was walking towards us with his guitar case. And I didn't know Bill at this point. I hadn't actually met Bill at this point. So I said, well, the show was kind of short, huh? And he said, yeah. And we kept on going. Drove home, alive, intact. Me, of course, packing the cassette recording of the performance. This very cassette you see in my hand. Yes, documented it. Of course, the video's out, so this is kind of superfluous, but it does exist, which is kind of nice. So, yeah, we get back to Connecticut, all wound up on adrenaline, and go to bed on Sunday night. Monday morning, at the ungodly early hour of 11 o'clock, I'm laying in bed. The phone rings. I pick it up. It's Jeff Clayton. He says, man, did you hear about GG? First thing I thought was the cops got him. That was the number one thought that flashed in my head. I thought for sure that the cops got him. Either they killed him, or he was found mysteriously hanging in his cell that night, or something. But Jeff's like, nah, man, he OD'd last night. He OD'd after the show. I was like, whoa. Wow. That's not the way that anybody expected it was going to end. He was like, yeah, man, he OD'd last night. I was like, damn. He said, well, you know that record we were going to do? And I was like, yeah. So we should probably press more than 500, and we should probably get it out soon. And I said, yeah, you're right. Yeah, we got to do this. Because, you know, what we all of a sudden had now was GG Allin's last ever recording session, you know? And if we'd only pressed 500, it's one of those deals where it would have been snapped up immediately. You would have started seeing them on, I don't think, no, actually, this is pre-internet, really. So you would have seen them in Goldmine magazine at sale for exorbitant prices, and it would have turned into a total circus and scam and shit show. So we had to make the decision to press it and make sure that there were enough available so that everybody could get one. And that was the motivator behind that. We didn't want it to turn into an instant collector's item and end up being a ripoff. We just wanted it to be there for people who could have it. So we got the wheels in motion pretty quickly. Jeff sent me the master tape, which was this very cassette. If y'all can read this, that is GG Allin and the Carolina Shitkickers. And there are the program notes. So this is the cassette that we used to get mastered at the pressing plant. And he sent me the artwork, and the wheels were set in motion for the release of the record. And at the time, I only did 3 pressings of this record. The first pressing was of 1,000. Did a second pressing on green vinyl, and then a third pressing on black vinyl for a grand total of 2,000. The first variant was the test pressing. We got the test pressing from United Records. United Record Pressing in Asheville, Tennessee, with what was at the time the generic United test pressing labels. Hope you can see that. We made 3 of these because that was the industry standard at the time. And it actually still is the industry standard. You can get more if you want, but we were trying to run pretty quickly on this one, so we only got the 3. I got one, Jeff Clayton got the other, and I traded the third copy to somebody for something a long time ago. And so Jeff, actually I should stand corrected, Jeff sent me finished sleeves that he had printed in Charlotte, much as he did for the Rawhead record that I had done previously and the Mad Brother Ward record that I had done previously. He actually, did all the layouts, put all the artwork together, and printed the sleeves and sent me the finished sleeves. And then I was responsible for the pressing and the assembly and then sending in his copies. The first pressings of this have this very light, I'll get a little bit closer on this, light yellow paper and light brown ink. That was Jeff's color scheme. That's what he wanted to do on this thing. So you can always tell that the very, very originals, light brown ink, light brown paper, black vinyl with the GG A-side label and the GG, or I should say the Jeff Clayton T-shirt B-side label. That's the first pressing of 1,000. Those sold out. We went into second pressing because it was a lot more cost effective to do black vinyl first, and then if you want to do color later, because you'd already done all the startup costs, which were, as always, really expensive. So second pressing, we still had the light color paper and the light color ink, but they're on this very lovely shade of sort of opaque green and white vinyl. We did 500 of these. And in the third pressing, I printed sleeves on my own up here in Connecticut. Jeff had sent me the artwork by then, and I printed these sleeves here. And you can tell the third pressing because the paper's darker and the ink is darker. The vinyl is still the regulation black vinyl with the regulation labels that we did on the first pressing. But it's the darker color scheme on the covers. And that's the original pressing of GG Allin and the Carolina Shitkickers. The one variant that came across, which was completely accidental, as these things so often are, you might remember in past talks about pressing records, excuse me for 1 second, is that no matter how hard you try, there's always leftovers. The numbers never match up. They never, ever, ever match up. If you press allegedly 1,000 records and 1,000 sleeves, you're going to get 1,100 sleeves and 950 records. Or you're going to get, you know, it just never adds up. You know, labels, even printing the labels. I ended up with all these extra labels when everything was done. And these are supposedly printed in sets of 1,000. So I got all these extra labels left over. You know, that's how ridiculous it is. For some reason, there was a shortage of covers for the Carolina Shitkickers. And this guy in Europe wanted to order a bunch. And I didn't have covers. So I went back to the print shop and told him I needed more of those yellow and brown sleeves. I needed them really fast. They said, we can't do it. They were either out of yellow paper or out of brown ink or whatever. So I asked them for an approximation, and they came up with this kind of sickly lime green with kind of sickly black ink. And so there's 200 of these that I made up, like, pretty much on the spot, just so I could send them out to Europe, where this guy wanted to buy a bunch. And, you know, regular black vinyl, regular labels. And, of course, the guy never placed the order. He stiffed me on the order. So the regular 200 ended up just going out to the standard channels, and that's why these exist. It's the regular third pressing. They just happen to have these sleeves. So that means that the actual number of the sleeves would be 300 of these and 200 of these. That doesn't make any sense at all. I'll have to go back and see if I can find the actual receipts or logbooks for these if I still have them. Because that doesn't add up. I don't know. It's 27 years ago. I don't know what the fuck's going on. So that was the first history of the Carolina Shitkickers record. After the second pressing, I'm going to call a timeout and mention, of course, the Carolina Shitkickers 8-track. Before I go on with the story, yes, we did the Carolina Shitkickers on 8-track. Because I love 8-tracks. I told the story of the 8-track before. 8-tracks rule. It's got bonus cuts that don't appear anywhere else in the entire universe. They are still available from me at TPOS. There are people out there who try to sell these things as collector's items for exorbitant costs. Don't do it. Do not pay a premium for these. I still got them. They're still available. And they haven't really changed since day one. The very original ones had a black and white label. And if you're really hell-bent, I'll make one for you with a black and white label. You know, there's no difference. They're still around. They're still cool. I do record them on the 8-track array that's behind me that you can't see. And if you stick them in the 8-track player of your 74 Chevy Impala, it will play GG Allin and the Carolina Shitkickers. Guaranteed. So that's the 8-track story. So anyway, shortly after we did the second pressing, or the third pressing of Carolina Shitkickers, things got difficult for me on the business front. I was talking about how the early 90s were rip-roaring. By 1995, going into 1996, the bottom completely dropped out of the music business. Alt-rock was dead. Grunge was dead. The music business was comatose. And it was pretty rough. I had to devote all of my attention to keeping the store afloat. My brick-and-mortar retail store, Trash American style. I had to focus all my energies on that, and I, in a lot of ways, had no choice because I had to lay off my entire staff. I went from having 8 employees to having 1 or 2 part-timers and myself and my partner in the business. So I really had to, like with laser-like focus, keep the store going. That meant I couldn't play any more shows with any of my bands. It meant I couldn't go to shows unless I was there specifically to sell records or to promote. I couldn't release records because everything I was doing had to go into the store and to keep the store afloat. And that lasted for a number of years. So a lot of things just kind of fell by the wayside. And one of them was the Carolina Shitkickers record. And somewhere during that interim, Jeff contacted a label called Zodiac Killer Records, and they did a pressing of the Carolina Shitkickers, which I've never seen one to this day. I've like maybe somebody showed me one once, but I don't own one, and I'm not really sure what the history was of that. Jeff will have to talk about that at some point if he wants to, in one of his later Break On Through broadcasts. But a number of years passed. We get into more of the present day when Jeff Clayton and I have reestablished contact and we're doing business again, and the topic of the Carolina Shitkickers has come up, and he said we got to reissue it. We have to re-release it. It's got to be back on TPOS. I said, you're right. It belongs at its rightful home on TPOS. So yeah, let's do it. This was last year in 2019. And my situation's a lot more stable. I'm able to afford to do records again. So great, awesome. We do a repress of the Carolina Shitkickers record. And that's resulted in some pretty cool, interesting variants. The first one being the test pressing version. I had 10 of these made. That's the front. That's the back. You can see that they are numbered 1 to 10 with the official TPOS rubber number stamp. And of course the test pressing note on the front. The labels, look at that. Look at those beautiful TPOS test pressing labels. That's custom, baby. That's custom. We used the original artwork that Jeff created, his cut and paste style artwork. And we used now these are done as glue pocket sleeves. They're not paper foldovers anymore. They're actual one-piece glued sleeves. Where the hell did I put my display copy? I don't fucking know. Whatever. And this one's falling apart, so actually, no, my God, I forgot about that. I made the test pressings in the traditional folded fashion. Wow, it's getting more interesting by the second. And here we go. This is the one-piece glue pocket sleeve. First time I ever did one of these. Really neat. They look great, and they saved me a lot of effort. I used the random color vinyl function at the pressing plant. So we got all kinds of different random colors of vinyl. This is the nice green vinyl. There's a couple hundred of these. The regulation version is the Carolina Swamp version. There's a whole bunch of them. Of course, they're all available here through me. Jeff Clayton got the exclusive orange vinyl. The only way you can get the orange vinyl is from Jeff Clayton at ANTiSEEN.com. If you want to get the orange vinyl version. He's the only one who's got them, so hit him up if you're a real completist. Other fun variants on that one. Made a cassette version of it because I love cassettes. Cassettes are almost as cool as 8-tracks. Cassettes are fun. We coupled that with the It's Not the Money, It's the Mission 7-inch. And someday I'm going to go on live and tell you the story behind that GG Allin record and that performance and hanging out with him and the disappointments for a few days. Ho ho, what a story that is. But that doesn't relate to ANTiSEEN, so I'm not telling it now. Okay? And the other final variant for now, my very favorite one, the limited edition of 8. There are 8 of these made. This is the GG Allin and the Carolina Shitkickers Ultimate Karaoke version. How is it Ultimate Karaoke, you might ask? I'll tell you. Look at this. There ain't nothing on it. This little piece of plastic contains no music whatsoever. Nothing. You can put this on your turntable and it'll play. Well, I mean, it won't play because there's nothing there. Ultimate Karaoke. So you can put this on the turntable and watch it spin around, but you have to dance around your living room and sing, "Laying Up with Linda used to be fun." And by the way, I wish I'd grabbed this beforehand, but Linda, the Linda in question in the song, was a woman who was calling herself Linda Allin. Not exactly sure what the deal is. I know that GG wrote something about her in one of his journals. And there was a relationship of some sort. And I got a letter from Linda Allin after GG got put in jail the first time, soliciting money for his bail fund or whatever. She said, "Anybody who sends us money will get a written receipt and we'll pay you right back." And I said, "Sure thing, Linda." And that was the last I ever heard from old Linda Allin. So yeah, we got the Ultimate Karaoke version. Jeff Clayton's got the orange version. And that brings us up to 1993, man. In this long, twisted saga of my involvement with ANTiSEEN and all their various side projects, finally culminating in me being in the band. I've got plenty more stories to tell. I'm not done yet by a long shot. I've got a minimum of one more broadcast here on the ANTiSEEN Facebook page talking about this stuff. Thomas O'Keefe, the erstwhile ANTiSEEN bass player, is going to be going on live this Thursday. I'm pretty sure it's Thursday, Jeff said, to tell stories. And I'm also, in a future broadcast, going to talk about the ANTiSEEN bass sound, which to me is very important. And Tom figures into that story. So y'all want to keep your eyes and ears open for that. So it's going to be Tom on this coming Thursday. Jeff's going to be on Tuesday at 5 o'clock with Break On Through. And I'm going to be on next Sunday with another story. And there's still the possibility and probability of other ANTiSEEN related people, past members, doing broadcasts here on the ANTiSEEN page. It's going to be bitchin', groovy, and bodacious. So Jeff on Tuesday, Tom on Thursday, me on Sunday, all at 5 p.m. We've got a lot of exciting stuff going on. You might have heard Jeff on his most recent broadcast talking about a live simulcast that we're going to do from the studio with a full camera crew, professional audio, coming at you with our savage thrust through the telephone and your computers. It's going to happen. We're having a big band meeting via satellite on Wednesday. We're going to talk about the details on that, and we're going to put that together. It's going to happen for you, so stay tuned for that. It's time for me to make my big plug. The Malcolm Tent solo album is still very much available. It has an exclusive live version of Sabu by ANTiSEEN, recorded last year when we were on tour with I Hate God and the Obsessed. And I will have stories about that. That was an awesome tour, man. That was a real good tour. That was my breaking into the ANTiSEEN ranks as a performing member. That was real good. So a song from that tour is on this record. Mixed by John Bowman, former bass player of ANTiSEEN, and officially sanctioned by Unimpeachable for Life, Jeff Clayton himself. So we got that. We've got a song by They Hate Us, which is the band that I'm in with PP and Dino of the Murder Junkies. It's got the original version of My God Can Beat Up Your God that ANTiSEEN stole and turned into their own. There's a lot of ANTiSEEN history in the grooves of this record. So if you want one, and I know you do because you're the educated consumer, talk to me, hit me up. I'm on Facebook. I'm very approachable. I'm easy to get along with, and I want your money. Enough said. So everybody, as always, I thank you so very much for tuning in. It's so much fun to do this and so great to hang out with you guys and read your comments and, hit me up. Let's talk. I'll answer questions. We'll blab. I got a lot more where that came from, and I really, really enjoy hearing from everybody. It's really cool. So, yeah, come back on Tuesday for Jeff, Thursday for Tom, and about 167 hours for me, Malcolm Tent, who is saying so long from the Nutmeg State.